Greetings, everyone, in the name of Jesus. We're here today with some experts in the area of renewable energy, and we want to talk about options in this first part of possibly a 2 to 3 part series, hopefully. And in this part, we're going to talk about options that are currently available to help people get off the grid and to live independently of the grid, which seems to be sort of a prison, if you will, to keep people in. And the world is basically addicted to electricity, and electricity is not necessarily the thing that we need, but at this stage, most people rely on it. So we'll talk about some of the options for producing our own electricity, and then hopefully in the future we might have the opportunities for other off-grid things that maybe are a little bit different to what we're used to with the standard solar and wind and other options that are available now. But we as a family live off grid. My name is Ray. I'm originally from the United States. I now live in South Africa in an off-grid homestead. And so it is possible to separate yourself from the grid and live a decent life. Our home has all of the modern features, except we haven't installed a dishwasher yet, but we have washer and dryer and refrigerators and freezers and lights and fans and all those things. So it is possible to live separate from the grid, and we want to try and give people some insight into the options of how they can do that. Certainly, if we had other technologies to add to this, and I think Stefan will talk about some of those things as well as Vishal, it could make up for the problem that we have at night when the sun goes down. We have to switch to battery power, and it's not quite as good, obviously, as we would like for it to be. So if we can come up with other options to fill in the gaps there, that would be very helpful. So we'll start with Vishal. Vishal has experience in the renewable energy field. He's done work with solar and wind energy, and he's developed now a new device in the wind field, and we'll let him let him talk to us about that as we start this meeting. Vishal?
Okay, thanks for that introduction, Ray. Dion, nice to meet you, man. Nice to finally put a face to the name. Dion and I had a long chat yesterday or day before yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishal.
So my current project is a Savonius type vertical axis wind turbine. I designed it and built it from fiberglass. The structure is steel, and I'm busy with manufacture of an axial flux generator, which I also designed. The coils were made using 2mm copper wire, and it's been cast in epoxy resin already. What I'm busy with now is manufacture or fabrication of the rotor, which houses the magnets. I've also toyed around with the ether. I managed to get my hands on some books pre-1997, because in 1997 there was a huge drive by the elite or the powers that be to remove ether technology or books from the internet. So I managed to get my hands on quite a few books from before then. And I've been toying around with those ideas, but never managed to perfect it or even implement or make any prototypes as yet. But I think that's going to change now with the input from Dion. What I'm also busy currently with is orgone technology. I know there is a big drive to block out the sun. That's what we've been hearing for a few months, if not years already. So I'm busy with the design for that, so that we can move clouds and, yeah, basically change the weather. I've also made or designed and built a hydrogen generator for my Nissan Navara Bakkie. and I use that to reduce the fuel consumption on it, and that's working pretty well.
What
Yeah,
kind of
so
efficiency do you get with that?
so it's about 20 to 25% efficient, based on whether it's urban or rural driving. There's a bigger saving, obviously, in in urban driving. So it used to be 11 liters per 100 kilometers. Now it's about 7.58.
Wow.
So for me, that's good enough. I
Yeah.
have the
Impressive.
option of expanding, but I didn't have the time to add more cells. But also, I'm happy with the fuel consumption that I'm getting.
That's
Yeah, that's
excellent.
about it from me.
Okay, thanks so much. We'll move on now to Stefan, who has a business in the area of renewable energy, and we'll let him give us a rundown of what things are currently available easily from the market and what kinds of things that we might look for, hopefully in the not too distant future. Stefan, also
Hello,
known as
everyone.
Steve.
Yes, Stefan, Steve, that's the name I go by. So in the current renewable energy market, technology has advanced, especially because of the conditions in South Africa. We sort of like call it the boiling pot for the world when it comes to energy and electricity specifically. So inverter systems have become far more efficient and far more advanced. Lithium technology has been improving. There's new talk of new supercap batteries that's becoming feasible and affordable. To give you an example, lithium pricing has decreased by something like 60% in the past 6 months from what
Wow.
it was to what it is now. Solar panels have reduced by, I'd say, 70% since what they were last year, this time, to what they are now. We're talking pricing around 2 Rand per watt versus stages where it was up to 6 Rand per watt. So that's a massive reduction in cost. The technology in the solar panels have also advanced, where the first solar panels were polycrystalline panels. Then we got the monocrystalline panels, and then they went with half cells, and things improved efficiency-wise. Went from 16% to 17% to 18%, and then over 20%. Now we've got the bifacial solar panels. So they are in straight normal conditions, in other words, ideal solar angle. They are roughly anything between 23 and 24% efficient, but they've got an added benefit. Because of the bifacial technology, the UV rays that hits the surface of the panel actually passes through it, reflects off a surface underneath the panel, and then generates a little bit of extra energy when it passes back through the panel on its way into the atmosphere.
Nice.
Now, this technology, scientists recently have done a very well-documented study where he has compared the most modern monofacial and most modern bifacial solar panels. And he has found that depending on the conditions, that the improvement is anything between 5 to 15% over the standard rated capacity. So if the panel's rated at argument's sake 600 watts, then the bifacial can potentially produce up to between 5 to 10, 15% more energy for the same surface area. And they've also found that these bifacial panels are far superior when it comes to overcast conditions, low light conditions, bad solar angles, and those kind of things. So overall, these panels is quite a big jump. It doesn't sound like a lot, but a jump, over the nominal capacity of anything between 5 and 15% eliminates all of your cable losses, all of the DC losses that you may have in the system, inefficient design, things like that. So the overall result will be much more energy efficient solutions for the long term. Now, with the battery technology, the same things have been happening. I'm glad Ishi mentioned the hydrogen technology. That's actually something that I'll touch on in a minute. So lithium battery technology has been advancing at a tremendous rate. The charge rate capacity of the lithium cells have improved significantly. Now, just to use some terms, and I'll quickly try and explain it in layman's terms as well, is there's a thing called the C rating of a battery. Now, the C rating of the battery determines how quickly it can absorb energy and how quickly it can discharge energy. Now, the best C rating batteries in the market up until now has been 1C, which means it could charge and discharge at its rated capacity. So if the battery is a 5 kilowatt battery, it can charge at 5 kilowatt and discharge at 5 kilowatt. This has now improved to points where we're going to be looking at batteries that can do 5C and 10C, which means if it's 10C, that means that the battery can charge 10 times its rated capacity and discharge at 10 times its rated capacity, which shortens charging times, increases the efficiency of systems, that uses either solar power or wind power or whatever the energy sources that you integrate into the system to charge the batteries. Lifespans of the batteries, already we're talking currently available batteries in the market already sitting at 12-year warranty conditions with unlimited cycles. I reckon within the next 6 months, we'll be seeing batteries with 15-year and 20-year warranties with unlimited cycle duties. So that battery technology is really catching up to the rest of the system, because it used to be the Achilles heel of a solar system is your battery storage and the rate at which you can charge and discharge. And the effect of discharge and recharge also has a negative effect on the lifespan of the battery. And they've seemed to have eliminated that negative or reduced that negative effect to such a point that they can now offer batteries with unlimited cycles, where previously you were very aware, can my battery do 6,000 cycles? And it was a very important factor to know if it's going to be a good quality battery or not. When it comes to the inverter systems, because the technology is currently moving to high voltage solutions. Now, the reason why high voltage is better than low voltage solutions is a simple fact. When you're converting energy from a high voltage to a lower voltage, your losses are far smaller than it would be if you're converting from low voltage to high voltage. The cost of energy is much higher to convert energy from low to high voltage. So there's a trend in the market now where they're going to be converting, majority of your solar systems will be high voltage systems. So it will be high voltage solar power to high voltage batteries, then to a lower voltage load, which means your conversion is always from high to low instead of low to high, which makes the systems then up to 99% efficient. That's incredibly high for electrical loss, cable loss, all of those things calculated into the equation. Then we talk about wind power technology. Now, Rishi is busy with a very nice, interesting project that he's doing himself, and it's admirable. I myself have been involved in developing our own range of wind turbines, and we initially had a basic version of turbine that was suited for sort of mid-range wind speeds, but we've discovered that South Africa, as such, and actually globally, the average wind speeds aren't that high. We're not talking about, and I'm going to mention meters per second, but I'll explain it in kilometers per hour. Miles per hour, unfortunately, sorry for the American lady. Miles per hour, I know you guys work in miles, and we work in kilometers per hour here. So your normal wind turbine, typically created in the market, is designed for 12 meters per second. That's a 43.6 kilometer per hour wind. We don't have that wind as an average in South Africa, unless it's on top of a mountain or you are hundreds of meters above ground. Then you can get into a jet stream that has those kind of average wind speeds. If you are ground-based, typically the average wind speed you'll experience is going to be anything between 5 meters per second up to about 8 meters per second. Currently, in here today, we have a lovely, strong 8 to 9 meters per second wind blowing. So my wind turbine that's next to my house is generating lots of power. And that's because it's been designed for that wind range. My machine is designed for a 9 meters per second wind, which is just under 30 kilometers per hour. So if the wind blows at 30 km an hour, it'll make 2 kilowatts per hour as long as the wind's blowing. And that is a massive benefit for renewable energy solution, because if you only rely on solar power, you typically only have 4 hours, or 4.2 to 6.2 hours on average throughout the year, depending on the season. You know, in the summer, you've got much longer days, but in the winter, you've got much shorter days, and then you've got the sun angle at a much lower angle in the sky. So your potential energy production from PV in the winter is much lower. And that's where the wind power comes into play, because this can potentially, and does, generate energy 24 hours a day, after hours when the sun's not shining. Now, and that's why the wind power is quite an exciting element of the renewable energy sort of idea, but it's not to be all and end all. There's other technologies we're busy working on that has a much, I believe, much more feasible solution for the future. It has lots of benefits, not only for energy production, but also for the environment, and actually utilizing resources that God has given us that we're wasting. And you know, if you're wasteful, I believe that is almost like being sinful. You know, if you're not using what God's given you and letting it rot and become you know, useless and cause damage to the environment, then you know that's not good. And unfortunately, we've been conditioned to live in a world where everything is disposable. Your cell phone reaches a point where it becomes disposable. Your kettle only has a certain lifetime and you've got to throw it away. It's disposable, you know. And we've been sort of forced to become consumers instead of creators. That is the reality that we are living in at the moment. But anyway, to get back to the renewable energy, so then the hydrogen technology that Rishi has been talking about is also very exciting, because it is a very clean form of energy. Your source for the energy is water and electricity that converts the water into hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas can be burnt in an internal combustion engine. You can burn it directly in a flame. So you can drive various different types of technologies with the hydrogen gas. To create the hydrogen gas, like I said, you simply need electricity. So now you can utilize solar power, wind power, and other types of renewable energy sources to generate hydrogen gas, which is a much more environmentally friendly. And I'm not going with a green story. I'm just saying that the conversion process, when you're burning the hydrogen gas, you end up back again with water. So it's a clean burning technology. If it burns in an internal combustion engine, it doesn't cause any soot deposits. It doesn't cause any additional corrosion on the metal components inside the engine. It doesn't contaminate the oil because it's a dry gas. So when it burns, it leaves nothing behind. It simply expels water. So the potential lifespan of an engine that burns hydrogen is much, much more and much better than an engine that runs on petrol or diesel, you know, which is a much more inefficient way of consuming that type of fuel. Now, so what a lot of, and this is a trend worldwide we're busy seeing. I mean, I'm actually involved in a lot of large projects where they're putting up solar power and wind power plants to generate hydrogen gas for the use of a fuel in vehicles and in machinery and equipment, because they've realized that this is the new true renewable energy source, because all you need in that formula is water and electricity, and you've got hydrogen gas. Now to get to the technology that I've been working as a sort of, I wouldn't say it's a side hobby, but I'm very passionate about energy and living efficiently and utilizing the resources that we've got available to the best of its potential, if that makes sense. So myself and an engineering friend of mine, he's based in Cape Town. We are in the process of developing a little, call it a system. I wouldn't call it a device because it incorporates multiple components. And it's a practical solution, if that makes sense, where this device utilizes wood burning, but typically if you burn wood on an open fire, the efficiency you're getting out of that wood is very low. It's like 15%, maybe if you're lucky, 20% of the wood that's actually burning is converted to heat energy that is either used for cooking or heating up water or purifying water, whatever the purpose of the burning of the wood would be. Now, there are methods of burning wood which is far more efficient, where because the moment wood burns and there's smoke means that you're not burning all of the wood gas that the wood is producing. So when you burn wood and there's no smoke, that means now you're consuming all of the energy, potential energy that wood has locked in it, and that doesn't even, and it's not only wood, it's any biological material, grass, wasted peelings from fruits and vegetables, any kind of biological materials can be used as a fuel in the system. It just depends on how advanced we make it. But the basic system we're busy developing at the moment is based on a rocket stove technology. Now, it sounds quite silly, but a rocket stove is incredibly efficient in converting wood into gas. And then when you burn that wood gas, it generates a very high heat. Did you know that a rocket stove can produce up to 1,200 degrees Celsius heat onto a plate that sits on top of it? It's an immense amount of energy, and to achieve that kind of heat, you only need 2 to 3 kilograms of wood. You can produce close to 20 kilowatts of heat energy out of 2 to 3 kilograms of wood. It depends on the type of wood. So, a denser wood has more potential energy in it. A softer wood has less potential energy in it. So what we've designed, or we're busy designing, is a rocket stove that has a built-in element that you can circulate water through. Now, this water we will bring to a boiling point that generates steam, and we're looking at the Tesla turbine. It's a relatively efficient turbine. It can get up to about 44% efficiency. There are other designs that are more efficient. The Pelton turbines are more efficient. There's what's the other one called? Never mind. But I mean, there's a couple of turbine designs that already exist that are relatively efficient. Now, our intention is to drive a small turbine, and we're talking literally the size of a CD or and the potential energy that little turbine have, even if we use the Tesla design, which is just a couple of metal plates that are sandwiched together, and you blow the gas over the edge of the metal plates, and it drives this turbine to generate revolutions. In other words, now you've got kinetic energy that you can convert to electricity by driving a generator. Now, one of the prohibiting factors was the design of the generator, because up until recently, we haven't really had the technology that could really build small, high speed or high RPM generators. And now we've found a solution for that. We have a design for a very high speed, small, high speed, high RPM generator that we can drive with our Tesla turbine. That means this little rocket stove system that we're developing will be producing, arguments like 1 kilowatt of energy per hour, right? And that you can utilize to charge a lithium battery solution and have a little inverter, so that can produce lighting for someone. It can allow them to charge cell phones and have the very basic solutions for electricity. The byproduct is hot steam, which we can then either capture and recapture. And if you recapture the steam, you've already gone through the first stages of distillation. So the resultant is going to be sterilized and clean water that is potable, in other words, drinkable water. You can, instead of directly distilling it into a cooling system, you can utilize that to heat a room, and the elements in the room can act as a cooling coil, in other words, to allow the distillation process to take place. So then you're providing the person with a couple of solutions. They can have electricity, they can cook food, and they have heat. Now we've basically covered majority of the needs of anybody living in a rural setting.
And make drinking water.
And make potable drinking water at the same time. Now, what you've got to understand is, if I look at my environment, it's very localized. Majority of the people that live around us, they collect tons and tons of wood, and they burn tons and tons of wood. in the most inefficient ways. You know, yesterday I saw the bunch of guys going down with a tractor to go and literally cut wood so that they can have heat, because currently it's cold where we stay. Now, for people like that, you can provide this little complete solution that provides them with one, heat, a method to have lighting at night and charge their cell phones, and basic electricity solutions. They have the ability to cook on it, and it heats up where they're staying. And then they've got clean water, because they have to literally go and pump water with a manual pump out of a borehole. And that water does have a level of contamination in it. It's not perfectly clean water. You still have to purify the water, either boil it or, you know, a couple of processes you've got to go through to make it safe for human consumption. And that's why a lot of them get sick, is because they don't boil the water. They just drink it straight, you know, out of their containers. And the system, we were designing the system in such a way that you don't usually need large volumes of water. The example of the 1 kilowatt system will produce anything between 5 to 10 liters of potable drinking water. And they would have to collect roughly about 30 liters of raw water from whatever their source may be. And the water does not have to be clean that they use for the system. But the end result is going to be clean drinking water, the ability to cook food, and also that means that they don't have to fetch so much wood and burn so much wood, because now instead of burning the wood inefficiently, they're using a very highly efficient system to burn the wood, which means they have to spend less time and energy collecting wood, which will that's a whole improvement of lifestyle for a group of people like that. Now, if we take that technology, then we move to gasification. Now, that's the next step of our development, is to utilize a proper gasification reactor. And this technology comes from the 1930s, 1920s, with the world wars, when diesel and petrol and fuels like that was not available. And people discovered that they could run a petrol engine on wood gas. So it's called a wood gasifier. That is the old technology that they had at that time. And they were able to drive their vehicles utilizing wood as the fuel. And it sounds unbelievable, but it's absolute fact. That's what they did. Now, if you utilize a wood gasifying reactor, now you can raise the temperatures even higher. That allows more efficient separation of the molecules of the wood gas that's being produced. And that wood gas can now be utilized to generate high temperatures that can generate larger amounts of steam. Now, the reason I'm stuck on the steam energy production is because, did you know that the power that you get from Eskom, from the utility or from your utility service, all of their turbines are what? Steam powered. All of them. If it's a nuclear reactor, if it is a coal-fired power plant, it is steam-powered turbines that generate your electricity. Now, all we're doing is we're taking the technology that is being held by them exclusively, as if they've got the only right to utilize this technology, and we're scaling it down to our own scale, that we can utilize it for ourselves. Imagine a farmer, and we're surrounded by farmers that produce tons and tons of calf and wheat, leftover bits, and corn cobs, and you know, there's such an abundant volume of leftover biological material that they've got available that they normally just burn. That's because they don't know what else to do with it. They burn it. It becomes a problem for them, literally. So now, instead of them burning it just because they have to burn it, they can put it into a gasification process and generate, arguments like 10 kilowatts per hour or 20 kilowatts per hour or 50 kilowatts per hour. You know, I mentioned this to one of my friends. He's a dairy farmer in the Eastern Cape. And he said, if I can give him a system that can produce 20 kilowatts per hour when he's busy milking his cattle, which is normally at, you know, from 3 o'clock in the morning until, argument's sake, roughly about 6 o'clock in the morning, where there's no sunshine available. And he can utilize all of the biological waste that's accumulated on his farm, including the cattle manure, etc. That's going to save him on diesel fuel 12,000 Rand a day. That's massive amount of diesel that he's going to burn every time he does a milking session. If the utility power, and even if the utility power is available, the electricity costs him a couple of thousand Rand a day to process the milk, because the milk's got to be first milk from the cows, then they've got to pasteurize the milk, and then it's only ready for transport to the destination where it's got to go. So this technology, if we take what governments and states have claimed to be theirs, and we take it from the lower end of the scale and give everybody the ability to utilize their wasted resources that is available and God-given, literally, and utilize it to the maximum efficiency, that's going to make the necessity to buy electricity from a government or from a municipality unnecessary, because you will be self-sustained. You're producing your own energy from the waste that you create and generate. Now, we can actually go one level up from that, and we can go as far as actually making a system that can gasify plastics, rubber, any kind of waste that humans create, and convert that to energy. And there's already systems that have been built and designed that can do that. But I think there's one country, I think it's Tokyo or Singapore. Singapore, one of the countries, they actually import other countries' waste to put into their plasma gasifying system that generates electricity for them. You know, and that is the level this technology can move to, that can generate infinite amounts of energy from the infinite amounts of waste, and that's renewable energy created and generated by us humans. You know, never mind. You know, there's a talk about all the invasive species in the country, and people, you know, they're very fussed about taking out invasive species. And typically, what happens to these invasive species is they get burnt. You know, the wood gets burnt. It's a wasted resource, in my opinion. It's stuff that could have been used to create a sustainable, more connected to the earth and life cycle, if that makes sense. More connected to what God's given you. You know, it's not wasteful. It's utilizing what's there. You know, you're not creating something new. You're just converting what's there into something that you can utilize. But yeah, I mean, that's about it on that technology. But then that again spills over. Now we can generate hydrogen gas utilizing our micro turbines that's gas powered or steam powered by the biological waste and all the waste we create, you know. And the hydrogen gas can be utilized as fuel. Now you can generate your own fuel for your vehicle, which you don't have to buy from a government or from a corporate company. You know, it changes the whole mindset of how you approach life. But yeah, so that is the idea, and we are still at the very first stages of that. But I'm very passionate about this, and I think it does have legs, potential for future utilization and expansion. And then there's other stuff we're also looking at, you know, converting wasted food. A lot of, you know, the commercials situation where you've got vegetables that sit on shelves and they become rotten. You know, typically that gets either fed to pigs or they just literally throw it into a dump. Now, all of that can again be converted into alcohol. Alcohol is also a wonderful source of fuel that is made by nature. You know that yeast surrounds us. You can put a bit of flour with a little bit of water in it in an aerated container and leave it for a couple of days, and then you've got a yeast culture. And that yeast you can utilize to make bread with. You can use it to ferment broken down biological waste that you've got and convert that into alcohol. And you can use that alcohol to power engines or to power heating devices. You know, so my mindset is to move away from being a consumer and being a creator of solutions for ourselves, you know, and instead of us waiting like idiots for the government to provide us with fuel and the government to provide us with this, and we've got to get this service and that service from the government. But God's already given us all the tools. It's right here in front of us. All we've got to do is just figure out how to use them. And that's my story. Thank you for your time, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Stefan. And that plays into our overall theme, which is coming out of Babylon. That's the people who are consumers and relying on governments to take care of them, and moving toward the Eden concept where there's plenty, moving from scarcity to plenty, and becoming a producer instead of a consumer. So that is also the theme of what this group and series of videos is about. So thank you very much for that interesting information. And now we'll move on to Dion, who is also here in South Africa. And he is an expert in engineering, especially related to electricity and power generation. And so we'll turn it over to him, and let's hear what he has to say to add to what's been given to us already. Please, Dion.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. It's difficult for me to say where I must start. I usually try to assemble a sort of idea that that's additive. The thing with my background is suffering was part of my life. So I had to figure out a way to think differently in the sense of what's been happening in the world. We're in a situation in the world that people are looking for solutions around energy. And there is an abundance of energy if we understand what to do. My research took a minimum of about 15 years. I built the prototype. The prototype is extremely efficient. So much so that I do have trouble with a lot of engineers looking at it, and they can't understand how it works. But it doesn't matter. What's important is then there needs to come a solution for everybody's energetic problem. Whether it is spirit, soul, physical, doesn't matter. It needs to be addressed and addressed properly. That's why I wanted to see something that was almost like hidden for most of the time in the industry, and I spoke a little bit to Vishal about specifically about the ether and how the ether functions and how you can harness the ether, and what's the fundamental building blocks of the ether, and some more. Now, I hear what Stephen has said, and I understand what he's saying. I went down that route for many, many, many years, and my biggest challenge was to get away from that way of thinking, getting to a point where I can find a solution that is totally different from what we all know of. The problem we have at present is that the way we look at energy, it's been programmed in us, the way we think about energy and how we utilize energy. We've been programmed to think in a certain way, and that keeps us within a certain boundary of our designs. So I had to block the whole way of, I can say, programming that I was being given. So my research took extremely turns, hell of a extremes. I bumped into CIA so many times, and at present I have a guy that's constantly following me and looking after exactly precisely what I do, and he's part of my life like my shadow. So I can't really talk about certain things in the sense openly. I'll talk in the sense so that people can understand that the technology that we have at present is a type of technology that's been given to us to keep us within a certain way of thinking and in a certain way of functioning. And if you don't understand that, you won't understand what I'm talking about. You won't. You'll be fixed and you will run the mill for the rest of your life, and you will believe that it's been given to you by God. That's what you were thinking. That just life is like this. It's supposed to be like this. That's what people will tell you. That's what the institutions will tell you. That is what you will learn in the universities. That is the way your life will be. There is no other way. This is what I say to you. They keep on telling you the same things. They hammer in on the thermodynamic laws like it runs out of your ears, the same story over and over and over, no matter where you go. And if you don't wise up, you will live this life for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, energy is the building block of society. If you don't understand that, you won't really, in the smallest, minutest way, think differently. Because energy is what everything is. Everything is energy. Doesn't matter how you want to think about it, how you want to talk about it. The bottom line of everything is energy. So when you understand that that type of energy is freely available, everything shifts. Every aspect of the way you think, the way you approach your life, how you do things, how you plan things, everything will change. But it's a big shift and it's very difficult because now there's two opposites. You have closed systems, and this is exactly what Stefan was talking about. He was talking about closed systems. All technology present on this earth is closed systems, all of them. There is nothing on this earth that is open systems. Nothing. This is where people don't understand. They are a unity. So meaning to say they are actually part of one another. So if I only tell you about closed systems, you will think this is the way life is. Everything is absolute in 50%, 60%, 90%. If you're very happy, you're going to get 92. If you're extremely happy, you're going to get 98% efficiency. I'm saying no, 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 no. If you look at nature, nature provides multiplications constantly. That means to say, if nature multiplies always everything and renew it constantly, what is the way? What is the way forward? Why are we circling with energy? Why are we always battling to have less, less, less? It's been designed like that, specifically designed by that, for us to believe that there is only shortage in this world. That's not what the world even want to hear, that God says there is abundance. They don't want to hear it. They're not ready for it. That's the reason why people stay within the systems. Okay, now the rant is past. I've finished the rant now. Now I'm going to talk about something that's important, and that's the sense that if you go to the building block of energy, and me and Vishu were talking about that in the sense that there must be a foundational energy that supplies everything life. So maybe we can call it God. Maybe we can say it's God's spirit. Maybe we can say it is Elakoa. I don't know. But what do I say today? What I'm saying to you, if you start to realize that God has created everything in the universe by the breath of his mouth, You need to understand what is the breath of his mouth. How does it function? So if I can allude to something specifically, I would say, why don't you just go and look at resonance? Start to study resonance. Start to look at all the deeper things about resonance. You'll see this. This is actually one of the keys of nature. Nature is in constant movement, constant resonance, constant. You cannot stop it. It's impossible to stop. Going down to the most fundamental building blocks, there's resonance. Meaning to say, if you understand that everything is constantly moving, why do you want to build a prime mover? Why in the name of God do you want to reinvent what God has built already? The prime mover is there for the taking. We need to understand that energy is extremely kinetic, extremely kinetic, extremely kinetic. We just don't know how to work with it. So it took me a lot of time to understand when you go down from this high level up, down to the building blocks of how energy functions. You'll see in Switzerland, they are busy with CERN's experiments and all this stuff. Where is the most fundamentals of energy actually basically concentrated? If you can understand this, what I'm saying now, you will realize why the things what I'm saying is actually the next move in the world for everybody to grow. And that's the function that you have the ether as a building block. Let's call it ether. We say ether and we say this is the word that I don't want. So let's say you have the building block as God as foundation. He is the beginning of everything. He is the alpha. He is the beginning of life, and he says he's the ending of life. So there's a full circle. So if God said that, it means to say we are somewhere in between. That's where we are. We are in between where he created and where things is going to stop. Okay. So we're on a timeline. So it means energy's got time. That's what it says. So if you understand that energy has got time, then if you master time, you will be able to have energy above what you can think of. Now, people says, no, time, you can't master. It's impossible to master time because time is not a construct. It's a figment of our imagination. Nah? Okay. So if you think about this and you ask yourself a simple basic question, if we are between what God has started and where things is going to end, what do we need to understand? How does God create? He says he's the beginning and he's the end. So if energy begins with him, it means we have to go back to what God wants us to have. So if he created light for us, yes, we built all this technology from light. But what is light? What is it? The Bible says God is light. Okay, so what do you say, Dion? Are we utilizing God? He says everything has its being in him. Meaning to say, if you understand this, that if you want to know what energy is, you need to learn to spend time with your maker. You need to spend time with him so that he can reveal stuff to you. And he revealed stuff to me like it's constantly coming. So if you think about ether as the building block, this is where we say this is the code word, is Elekoa, and we're going to the next level and we say, okay, if we have ether, can we have electricity? Yes. But Dion, ether is too fast. Yeah, it's in its tera cycles more or less, maybe a little bit higher than that. So meaning the frequency is extremely fast, but it's also in a constant pressure, constant pressure. So there's a, absolute principle of electricity that You can't get more than what is being put in. This is what they say. Okay. The reason for that is they are already on a much higher level of electricity. When you go down, and you have the ether as the building block. So just below ether, you have God, you have ether as the manifestation of God's power, and then you have the next level. This next level is where ether interacts with everything else in the universe. Okay? So if you can understand that, it means to say there is something that you've missed all your life. You thought that electricity is God. Now, electricity is a manifestation of what ether is. Now, manifestation runs in the law of threes. Always, you can check everything around you. There's always a law of threes. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. People talk about that. It means to say there is a specific condition that needs to be right. A specific condition. If you understand the condition, you'll be able to harness energy like you don't even understand. This is what it's all about. So, you can go higher up. You can utilize energy on the higher scales, and you are limited by what you're going to get there. You go down, and now you're going into God's domain, where God will allow you or he will not allow you. He will give you and he will take away also. This is what you need to understand. So if God gives you something like what is given to me, you need to understand there is a very specific relationship between you and him. And you need to become very obedient when God says you can reveal certain things to a certain point. But if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to go into your 40-year cycle in the desert. Because you've been not listening. Disobedience. So what I'm saying to you, I have prototypes and I know how to design and work with energy on the most basic fundamentals. The thing with this is just now. Everybody wants an energy solution in the world. Everybody wants it. This is the same thing what I'm saying to you. I can take you by hand and I can show you stuff and I can let you do the experimentation. You can do it all yourself and you can learn how to do it. But ultimately, it will cost you money. You need to understand you will be investing. You will be investing what? People say, okay, I'm going to buy a solar technology. They're investing. They take 200,000 rand and they invest. So free energy, people think free energy is free. It's not free. You invest to build the system. Once you've got the system, there is always an input you have to put in. What is the type of input what I'm talking about? You can take one in and then you have multiplications out. So now you're not anymore dependent on any person anymore. Meaning to say, if you want 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, it's your choice. That depends on how much money you've got. So the amount of money that you bought, that you brought to the table, you're going to be able to say, okay, I can only do 0.99% because I'm going to pay these other guys, the utility company, I'm going to pay them for the rest of life. So I'm going to invest my money, what I would have invested in my own systems. I'm going to pay that to them. So it's your choice. So the moment when you start to think that how energy functions, you'll see there's always an input. God has put in his time, his energy, his being into it. This is what people don't understand. God worked 6 days and the 7th day he rested. Meaning to say, there is going to be an input into your energy system. But now it becomes very, very easy. Because if you have a small solar panel, then you can have 7 times that solar panel's output. If you want 7 times, if you want 100 times, you can have 100 times output. It's your choice. This is what I'm saying to you. This is how energy functions. Constantly. No matter what you do. It means to say, Dion, are you talking nonsense? No. Let's make it simple. Very simple. Go out into your garden, look at a simple cactus plant that has petals right around, and as it grows, and it goes into a spiral. Why does it go into the spiral? I thought for every action there is an equal opposite action. It's the biggest lie. It's not equal but opposite. There is constant growth. Constant growth. Meaning to say, energy doesn't stand in balance. They want you to believe that. The moment when you believe that, you will believe what they say next to you. You can only have 60% or you can only have 70%. So give me 100 Rand, I'll give you 60 Rands back. What do you think about that deal? It's the best deal in life, huh? You give me 100 Rand, I'll give you 60 back. That is how life is, you know. This is the mentality of the system of Babylon. This is the mentality, is to say, I can become rich easy because you are stupid, because you believe that. You believe that there is only a shortage in the kingdom of God, in the creation of God. You can go outside and see the shortage. The sun doesn't come up, it circles to come up. Doesn't work. But God says to us, go out and check, look up in the sky, he says to us. Why? He says to tell Abram. He said, Abram, count them if you can. Why? Why? God is saying to him, if I have the abundance of everything, my child, why would you believe a lie that there is shortage? Why would you believe it? Why will you believe it? You will believe it because you have set me aside. You have set me aside. So bring your heart back to me. That's what God actually said to him. So when Abram said, Dion, how do you know? It's easy. He took his son, his one and only begotten son. He take him up to the mountain. And God says to him, if you believe me, kill him. And Abraham said, yes, let me do that. Let me do that. And he took his son. His son's name is Isaac, what means laughter. Why laughter? Why was it laughter? Because Sarah was listening when the two angels came and said to Abram, Abram, you're going to be the father of the nations, all nations. Now imagine that. If God would say to you, you have abundance of energy, would you laugh at him? Would you laugh when he said to you, there is abundance? And you say, no, that's not abundance. But every day the sun is rising for how many thousands and thousands and millions of years, millions and billions, and I don't know what they actually say about. But this is what I'm saying to you. So if you understand what I mean by energy, I say to you, let's get back to the source. Let's get back to a way of thinking, how we can utilize what God has given to us. And nature is proclaiming it daily for us. Need to study nature, look at nature, understand what nature brings to us. So if you understand the basic building blocks, you will be able to do energy, whatever you want to do, all the types of energies. It grows in it, interacts and integrates with all types of energy. So you start with ether. Next level up is now you utilize AC and DC. Very few people know about pulsed DC. Very few people actually recognize that pulsed DC must be in resonance. Very few people understand that. Resonance is the absolute creation of superconductivity. There you have it. Giving you a key that is most important for creating energy, like it runs out of your ears all the way back. Meaning to say, when you have a system and you have a coil and it's not in resonance, it is not in superconductivity. Meaning to say, amperage and voltage is not equal. But at the moment when you have resonance, you have absolute harmony. If you created 50 amps, you're going to have 50 volts. If you create 50 volts, you can have 50 amps. If you put them together as 50 times 50, that is how much power you have. That energy manifests in the earth and in the air. That's how it works. So there's building blocks that you have to understand when you have this type of information and you work with this type of information. You'll be able to manufacture energy all the way that you want to. It's not difficult. What's difficult is to change your mind from having less to abundance. That's the difficult part about all this. So the prototype has been built, been explained, and showed to a lot of people. Doesn't make sense because you put 2 watts in, but you get 18 watts out. Doesn't make sense. This is where you need to start to believe that abundance is a natural way of living. Then energy is not the problem anymore. What's the problem is, who's going to invest first? Who's going to give the most money? What do they want to do with it? Where are they going to use it? Then the problems get different. It's no more the same problem that we have too little. Now we have too much. What you're going to do with too much? It's a different problem than what you have when you have too little. So that is the opposites of the two sides. And if you could understand what I said now, and you see the operation of the simple video that I sent to Uncle Ray. If you see the operation, you will understand that what you see right in front of your eyes is the real deal. Why is it the real deal? It's a real deal because you can believe that there is abundance because this is multiplication. And it's been given to us thousands of years ago. And people don't believe it. They just don't want to believe it. They don't want to know, and they don't want to believe that there is abundance. They can believe in shortage. That's what they can do. But to believe in abundance, it's not possible. So I'm finished. This is the way I went through a lot of stuff. I've built more than 2,000, even maybe more, prototypes. I was until here. You've got Ohm's law, and you've got Ohm's law on its head. That's how it works. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm sure that went over most people's heads. So I'm going to try to maybe put together an introductory video to help sort of set the stage for what we did here today, and hopefully I can make some sense of it for the average person or average individual, not a person, but average individual listening to this. But what we've done here is we've talked about what's available now through solar and wind and things like that, and what is coming down the pike in the other areas that Stefan talked about, and now Dion has given us an introduction to probably something that's the wave of the future. Now, he mentioned a term, Elkoa. This is a term that I felt like God wanted us to coin, because EL stands for God. It can be a little g God or the big G Most High God. And Koah, K-O-A-H, is, I believe, Hebrew for power. So literally, Elkoa is the name of its power. So we're not going to use electricity in the future. Hopefully we'll use Elkoa, where we can tap into the power of God. That's what our goal is, our aim is, and hopefully God will give us direction to where we can utilize that in the future in place of electricity. Because God showed me that the grid, the electric grid, is like a prison cell. And so people are locked into that prison behind the electrical grid. And so if we can get off grid and away from the grid, then we're doing what God said in Revelation 18, verse 4, to come out of Babylon, to come out of her, lest we share in her judgment and her sins. So we want to obey that commandment, and we're hoping that we can help people to change their mindset from consumerism to become producers, and help them to come out of Babylon and move toward the concept of Eden. We don't know if that Eden is a physical place, which it may be in some upcoming videos. Hopefully we'll talk about that concept. But for now, we've covered the idea of helping people to understand what the options are as we understand them for getting off grid and trying to break free from the bondage of the grid where you're just paying the government for power. And we want to get the power from God directly and to be able to use it. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to do that. But in the meantime, there are options available that are on the market. Stefan is in the business of renewable energy, and that's what his business is about. And he can help people if they have questions about what is available now. And certainly what he described is getting better and better. We'll see how long that lasts. But in any case, there are options available now if you have the wherewithal to implement them. And in the future, we're hoping that we will have other better options to directly tap into the power that God has created for us to be able to have access to. So thank you everyone today who participated and contributed. May God bless you all, and we will hopefully get this video up as soon as possible. Does anybody else have any other comments before we go? Okay.
I can maybe say,
thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. It was very interesting to listen to Dion. There is some interesting things that he's mentioned that sort of caught my attention, that I will be investigating as well. And potentially at a later stage, I might want to have a chat with him and just discuss it a little bit further. You know, it is a
you're welcome.
Yeah, understanding the building blocks of energy is quite, is important, and it's all part of what we want to achieve, for the future for all of us. At the current rate, if we carry on like we are on a path of destruction.
Absolutely.
That is what where we're heading, and we need to turn that around. That's our responsibility.
Absolutely. Yes.
But thanks again. You're all best, and it was very interesting to listen to Dion, and I think it's given me some food for thought. Thanks a lot.
I can maybe mention, Stefan, a very important part of my research. I met a guy that he built a system that he plugs into the the inverters of all the solar systems. And what it does is he recycles the energy. So he recycles the energy in the sense that when your battery is, say, for instance, 4 amp hours, he recycles that energy to about a 95% extra. So there is a way that you can recycle that energy at night when all your systems is off and you have no income energy on the PV part. He's built a system that he recycles that energy back. So when your system is only 4 hours, you can double that without adding extra battery. So this is another part of technology that is available now. And then I want to say, the prototype is built in such a sense that it can integrate with all the types of electricities there is, whether it's AC, whether it's DC, whether it's pulse DC. And with that specific prototype, you'll be able to say, charge a battery from a battery. If the one battery is a 12-volt battery, you'll be able to charge a 12-volt battery. So the system is designed to be multiplied so that you can put extra batteries on and you use only one battery to charge 10 or 20 or 40 batteries, it's your choice how to scale it up. So it becomes very functional in daily lives. So it integrates with your type of technology, what you have present. It integrates with that. It integrates with all the type of electricities there is, and makes it available for everybody. That is the spin on it. So meaning to say, when you come from the most basic blocks, you're going up, then you have, if you have a basic block, you can enter into all the types of electricity that there is. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Vishay. Thank you, Steve, for having me. Thank you, Uncle Ray, for having me. It's a big privilege.
Thank you, everyone. Anyone else? More comments? Okay, we'll call this meeting to an end. Thank you, each and every one of you. And we would like to ask people to like and share and subscribe and click the notification bell if you're interested in future videos like this. And God bless everyone, and goodbye.